The last smile. The training hall smelled of old sweat and worn leather. The late afternoon light streamed through the tall windows, drawing golden stripes on the tatami where Bruce Lee spoke to a small group of students. His fingers traced circles in the air, as if he could mold his own thoughts into visible shapes. Water does not fight stone. It surrounds it, wears it down, adapts. True power is not in resisting, but in flowing. His voice was calm, almost hypnotic, but carried the intensity of someone who had seen the world in motion. Among the listeners, a man with broad shoulders and a disdainful expression crossed his arms. It was Chen Wei, a traditional kung fu fighter who saw Bruce as a threat, a Westerner who dared to challenge centuries of tradition. Chen laughed, a short, harsh sound, like a dog growling. A poet's philosophy. In the ring, all that matters is strength and technique. Those beautiful words don't break bones. Bruce didn't turn around right away. His eyes, dark and penetrating, remained fixed on the void for a moment, as if he were listening to something beyond the walls. Then, slowly, he turned to Chen. A light smile touched his lips, but there was no humor in it, just the certainty of someone who already knew what was coming. "You're right," Bruce said, tilting his head. "We'll see, then." Before Chen could react, Bruce stepped forward. 6 seconds. That's all it took. In the first second, Chen was still smiling, confident. By the second, Bruce had already closed the distance between them. On the third, his right hand moved in a blur, not a punch, not a strike, but a precise, almost gentle tap on Chen's shoulder. In the fourth second, the fighter felt something strange, a sudden pressure, as if his own weight was pulling him down. On the fifth, his legs gave out. By the sixth, he was on the floor, his knees drawn up beneath him, his breath catching in his throat. Bruce stepped back, hands relaxed at his sides. Chen tried to get up, but his body didn't respond. There was no pain, no bruising, just an inexplicable weakness, as if all his muscles had forgotten how to work. "Water doesn't break stone," Bruce repeated, softly. "It dissolves it." The students watched in silence. Some exchanged incredulous looks. Chen, still on the ground, felt cold sweat running down his temple. It wasn't a coup. It wasn't brute force. It was something deeper, something he couldn't name, and it scared him more than any punch. Bruce crouched down beside him, voice soft. "The true martial art is not in beating the other. It is in understanding that, sometimes, the greatest victory is making the enemy realize that there is no fight." Chen didn't respond. His pride still burned, but something inside him had broken, not the bones, not the flesh, but the illusion that strength was everything. When Bruce stood up and returned to his students, the hall seemed quieter than ever. And for the first time, Chen Wei didn't laugh. The weight of silence. The following days were strange. Chen returned to the dojo not as an opponent, but as a shadow. He sat in the back, observing Bruce's classes with an attention that he previously reserved only for his own training. The other students whispered, but no one dared to provoke him. There was something different about him, not fear, not submission, but a stillness that no one knew how to decipher. Bruce noticed. He didn't say anything, but one morning, while the students were stretching, he approached Chen and handed him an old book with a worn leather cover. "The Path of the Void Warrior," read the title in faded characters. "Read it," Bruce said, bluntly. "And then we'll talk." Chen hesitated, but took the book home. The pages smelled of time and dust, and the words written there seemed to speak directly to the crack he felt inside him. They spoke of strength that was not muscle, of victories that left no marks, of a type of power that was born from acceptance, not resistance. That night, for the first time in years, Chen didn't dream about fighting. Dreamed of a river. The fall of the wall. A week later, the dojo received a new challenge. Not from a student, but from a visiting master, a man named Li Jian, known for his relentless technique and his disdain for weak philosophies. He had come to the city with a purpose, to prove that Bruce's style was just a facade, that true martial art required blood and pain. I accept the challenge, said Bruce, calmly. Chen felt his stomach tighten. He had seen Li Jian fight before, a man who not only defeated but humiliated, who left his opponents broken on the ground, sometimes forever. And now, here was Bruce, offering himself as a target. The fight was scheduled for sunset, in the dojo courtyard. When the moment arrived, the place was packed. Students, onlookers, even some of Bruce's rivals came to watch. Li Jian entered first, wearing a black kimono, his eyes as cold as blades. Bruce appeared soon after, in his simple uniform, expressionless. They greeted each other with a nod. So, they started. Li Jian attacked with brutal speed, blows that seemed destined to crush bones. Bruce dodged, blocked, but didn't counterattack. With each movement, Chen felt his heart tighten. Why doesn't he fight back? Why don't you use what you know? Then, it happened. Li Jian delivered a powerful roundhouse kick straight to Bruce's ribs. Instead of blocking, Bruce moved with the blow, twisting his body so that the impact drove him backwards, like a leaf in the wind. For a second, it looked like he would lose his balance, but then, with an almost imperceptible movement, Bruce redirected the force of the kick, sending Li Jian staggering forward. The visiting master recovered quickly, but there was something in his eyes now, uncertainty. They continued. Li Jian attacked with increasing fury, and Bruce, instead of resisting, absorbed, redirected, dissolved. With each blow, Li Jian's anger seemed to grow, while Bruce remained calm, as if he was dancing. Until, in a moment, Li Jian stopped. This isn't a fight, he growled. It's cowardice. Bruce didn't respond. Just waited. Li Jian charged forward one last time, with everything he had. Bruce didn't move. At the last moment, he dodged within the blow, lightly touching Li Jian's wrist. The visiting master stumbled, unbalanced, and fell to his knees. Silence. Li Jian looked at his own hands, as if he didn't recognize them. Then, slowly, he stood up. There was no defeat in his eyes. There was something worse, understanding. I don't understand, he murmured. Bruce smiled, for the first time. Now you are ready to learn. The last challenge. Chen did not return to the dojo the next day. Not in the other. He stayed in his apartment, Bruce's book open on the table, the words echoing in his mind. The greatest struggle is not against the other, but against the illusion that we are separate from them. On the third day, he knew what he needed to do. He returned to the dojo at dusk, when the last students had left. Bruce was alone, sweeping the floor. He looked up when Chen entered, but said nothing. I want to train, Chen said, his voice firm. But not like before. I want to learn what you know. Bruce placed the broomstick on the ground. And what do you think I know? Chen took a deep breath. That strength is not enough. That winning is not the same as dominating. That sometimes the best way to fight is not to fight. Bruce watched him for a long moment. Then he nodded. We start tomorrow. And for the first time in a long time, Chen felt something settle inside him. It wasn't peace. It wasn't certain. It was something simpler, the beginning of a path. The end of the path. Years later, Bruce's dojo was different. No longer a place of challenges and rivalries, but a space where people came not to prove their strength, but to find something they couldn't always name. Chen, now an instructor alongside Bruce, observed a new student, an arrogant, fiery young man who had come here determined to learn how to win. Chen smiled. He knew exactly what the boy was about to discover. And as the sun set over the courtyard, he thought about how things had changed. Not just in him, but in everyone who passed by. The true martial art, after all, was not about winning. I was realizing that the fight was never against the other. He was always against himself. The end of the path. The young man was called Ren. He arrived at the dojo with his fists clenched, his eyes shining with the certainty that there he would find the secret to crushing any opponent. "I want to be the best," he had said in the first class, while the other students, older and more seasoned, exchanged silent glances. Bruce just nodded, as if he had heard those words 1,000 times before. Chen, however, couldn't contain a smile. "You will learn," Chen said, adjusting the sash around his waist. "But not what you expect." Ren didn't understand. "And for the first few months, I didn't want to understand." He trained furiously, challenging his colleagues, demanding real fights, disregarding the breathing and meditation exercises that Bruce insisted on including. "This is a waste of time," he grumbled, while the other students, more patient, watched his outbursts with a calm that only irritated him more. Until, on a swelteringly hot afternoon, Ren finally broke down. It was during a randori, a free training session, without rules, where the objective was not to win, but to flow. Ren attacked with all his might, as always, but this time his opponent, a woman named Mei, didn't fight back. She dodged, relented, redirected her strength until, in one smooth movement, she knocked him to the mat. Ren got up, red with anger, and attacked her again. Mei repeated the gesture. And again. And again. "Why don't you fight?" he shouted, after the fifth fall. Mei wiped the sweat from her forehead and looked at him with an expression that Ren couldn't decipher. "Because you're already losing." Ren didn't return the next day. Not in the other. When he reappeared a week later, he was different. Less inflamed, quieter. Bruce didn't comment. Chin just handed him a broom. "Today, you sweep the dojo." Ren wanted to protest, but something in his chest stopped him. He picked up the broom and began to work. As he swept, he noticed things he'd never seen before: the cracks in the wooden floor, the smell of incense mixed with old sweat, the way the late afternoon light streamed through the windows and drew patterns on the floor. Mei walked past him and smiled, as if she knew something he didn't yet. The following months were a slow deconstruction. Ren learned to fall without hurting himself. He learned to breathe when anger rose. He learned that strength was not in the strike, but in the ability not to strike. And, little by little, he realized that the dojo was not a place to become invincible. It was a place to become whole. One night, after an exhausting session, Bruce took him aside. "You arrived here wanting to win," said the master, as he rolled up a worn sash. "And now?" Ron hesitated. The words that once came so easily now seemed stuck in his throat. I don't know what I want anymore." Bruce nodded, as if that was the answer he was expecting. "Then you are on the right path." Time passed. Ron became an instructor. The students arrived with the same arrogance he once had, and he watched them with the same patience that Bruce and Chen had shown him. Sometimes, when the dojo was empty, he would sit in the center of the mat and close his eyes, listening to the silence. It wasn't peace. It was something deeper, the acceptance that the fight was never over. It just changed shape. Years later, when Bruce decided to retire, it was Ren who took over the dojo. Chin, already graying, still showed up to train, and the two faced each other in slow, almost dancing movements, as if each gesture were an ancient conversation. Mei, now a respected master, brought her own students to exchange knowledge. The dojo remained alive, not because of the trophies or the victories, but because there, within those walls, people learned to look inside. And one morning, when the sun rose over the courtyard and the dew still glistened on the leaves, Ren realized that there was nothing left to prove. Not for others. Not for yourself. The fight was over. But the path continued.